Welcome back, grade 9s. Today is Wednesday, the 15th of April, and you will see that today's work is also very similar to yesterday's work. It's just easing you into equations. So we're going to solve equations using inverse operations, and today I just want to show you and remind you, especially with the signs, if you are left with a negative x is equal to, how to change that to a positive. If you are left with a negative x is equal to a negative something, just the what happens with those signs at the end. Okay, so let's quickly have a look at example 1. 3 minus x is equal to 15. So what is there next to x that we don't want? That 3. Please remember the sign in front of that term goes with that term. There's a plus 3. If there's nothing, there's a plus. So plus 3, if it goes over to the other side, it becomes a minus 3. All right, so once you do that, please remember that x wasn't just a positive x, it's a negative x. That negative x comes down. That is what's left, is equal to, and then if you do the sum here, 15 minus 3 is 12. So negative x is equal to 12. Did I ask you to solve for negative x? No, we always ask solve for x. So please, when you have a negative x is equal to 12, I always say if you've got one term on each side, you can just pass that negative over to the other side. So the x is equal to then negative 12. So that negative, it doesn't want it, but only if there's one term on each side. That negative gets passed over, and then the negative goes and sits there, and a positive x is equal to negative 12. What you are actually doing is you are saying negative x is equal to 12. So you are dividing with a negative. Remember, what's in front of the x that you don't want there? A negative. So even with signs, that is applicable. But what you do on the one side, you have to do on the other side. So what you're actually doing is you're dividing by negative 1 on each side. So negative divided by negative becomes a positive, and a positive divided by negative is a negative. 12 divided by 1 is 12. So instead of doing that the whole time when you are left with a negative x, you'll find that quite often all you can do is you can say, well, I've got one term on each side, I'm just going to pass that negative over to the other term. All right, okay, let's have a look at example 2. When we are left with two negatives on each side, 5 minus x is equal to negative 10. What is there in front that we don't want with the x? A positive 5. Pass it over, it becomes a negative 5. What are you left with? Very important. It's not just the x, it's a negative x is equal to minus 10 minus another 5 is minus 15. Okay, I always say if you've got two negatives on each side, they cancel each other out. Again, you have to have only one term on each side, and then they are both positive. So x is equal to 15. So two negatives, they cancel each other out, and it becomes x is equal to 15. So just to show you what we're actually doing, negative x is equal to negative 15. What is in front of the x that we don't want there? A negative. So you divide by negative on that side, but what you do on that side, you have to do on the other side. So thus, negative divided by negative is a positive. What is left? X is equal to negative divided by negative is a positive. 15 divided by 1 gives you just 15. Okay, so if you've got one negative x, you are allowed to just pass it over, only if there's one term on each side. You're allowed to pass that negative over, and then it becomes positive. X is negative 12. And remember, if you've got two negatives, they cancel each other out, and then you've got x is 15. Let's just quickly have a look at two more examples. 3 minus 4n. So now there's something attached to the n. Okay, remember, it's not always solved for x. It can be solved for n, it can be solved for s, it can be solved for m. We just normally use the x because the x doesn't look like any other number, or doesn't come close, and you can't get confused with that. So in this case, they ask you to find n. All right, so 3 minus 4n is equal to 43. Okay, that 4n, they just stay together for a little while. They attach, leave them alone. What is loose on this side? A positive 3. Please, what is in front of it is a positive 3. Once it goes over to the other side, it becomes a negative 3. What are you left with? Negative 4n is equal to 43 minus 3 is 40. Okay, now you're going to say, what is happening to the n? What is happening there? It's being multiplied with 4. And not just a 4, a negative 4. So what is happening to n? It's being multiplied by a negative 4. What is the inverse of negative 4 times by negative 4? Divide by negative 4. So in pink there you can see divide by negative 4, but what you do on the one side you have to do on the other side. Okay, so that negative 4 divided by negative 4 cancels out, and you're left with your n is equal to positive divided by negative is a negative. 40 divided by 4 is 10. Okay, remember your snare. First the signs, then the numbers. We don't have exponents here, so it's sign and the number. Right. Example 4. Negative y over 4 minus 10 is equal to 0. Okay. What is loose there? That y, okay, it's complicated. That thing is still together. It's stuck there. It's one term over there. So that minus 10, you go over to the other side, becomes a plus 10. So then you're left with that negative y over 4 is equal to 0 plus 10 is 10. Negative y divided by 4 is equal to 10. So now you're going to ask yourself, what is happening to the y? Even though it's a negative y, what is happening to that y? It's being divided by 4. What is the opposite? What is the inverse of divided by 4? Times by 4. Okay, so you always ask yourself, what is happening to that unknown? What is happening to that variable? It's being divided by 4. What is the inverse of divided by 4? Times by 4. Okay, so that will cancel out, and you are left with, and what you do on the one side, you have to do on the other side. So you're left with negative y is equal to 10 times 4 is 40. Okay, remember what I said? We don't want negative y. Because they are one term on each side, you can just pass that negative over to the other side, and y is equal to negative 40. Okay, you can always go and test. So you can see over here, I quickly went to go test my answer. Does this make it true? If I got y is equal to negative 40, that would make this equation true. Okay, so that means that this side will be equal to that side if y is equal to negative 40. So if I go and replace in that space where the y was a negative 40, and I do the sum, does my left hand side equal then to my right hand side? So negative 40, that negative becomes a positive 40 divided by 4 is 10. 10 minus 10 does give you 0. Okay. Thank you, grade 9s, and that is it for today. Please remember to do your homework on page 132. It's number 1 and 2, all of them, and then we will mark them. You will see the memo would be up for tomorrow in tomorrow's to-do list in the Word document there. Have a great day. Thanks, bye.